For decades, we've been told that the secret to weight loss and health is nothing more than a simple equation: eat fewer calories than you burn, and you'll lose weight. Sounds logical, right? On the surface, it feels scientific: energy in, energy out. But this oversimplified idea has done more damage to public health than most people realize. It's a half-truth that ignores the complexity of human metabolism, and worse, it shifts the blame for chronic disease onto individuals instead of the real causes. The calorie equation treats the body like a furnace, as if you could shovel in any kind of fuel: sugar, refined flour, fried foods, and as long as you don't overfill it, you'll be fine there. But your body isn't a furnace. It's a finely tuned biochemical system that responds to the type of food you eat in dramatically different ways. 100 calories from soda will not have the same effect on your body as 100 calories from salmon and spinach. The soda will spike your blood sugar, trigger insulin, and set off a cascade of fat storage hormones, while the salmon and spinach will deliver nutrients, stabilize your blood sugar, and actually support your metabolism. Treating all calories as equal ignores these biochemical realities. When people buy into the calories in, calories out model, they often resort to chronic calorie restriction. They eat less but still consume processed, high-carb, low-nutrient foods because they believe they can fit it into their calorie budget. This leads to muscle loss, slowed metabolism, hormonal imbalances, and intense hunger. The perfect setup for yo-yo dieting. And when the weight inevitably comes back, they blame themselves instead of the broken model they were taught to follow. The calorie myth also blinds people to the root causes of disease. If someone is gaining weight or struggling with high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, or fatty liver disease, the calorie model will tell them it's just because they're feeding too much. But that's not always true. You can develop chronic disease even in a calorie deficit if you're eating foods that disrupt your hormonal balance, damage your gut, or create chronic inflammation. People have been led to believe that as long as they hit their calorie target, they're safe. But under that same calorie target, a diet full of sugar, refined carbs, seed oils, and processed snacks can quietly erode health over time. Even worse, this lie has given processed food companies the perfect loophole. They can market candy bars, sodas, and chips as part of a balanced diet as long as the calorie count seems reasonable. They slap labels like low-calorie or 100-calorie snack packs on ultra-processed junk food to make people believe it's a healthy choice if eaten in moderation. This keeps people hooked on nutrient-poor foods while they wonder why they can't lose weight or feel better. The truth is, your body is not just a passive container for calories. It's a dynamic system that responds to hormones, enzymes, neurotransmitters, and nutrient signals. What you eat determines how your body uses those calories, whether they're burned for energy, stored as fat, or used to repair tissues. The calories in, calories out narrative completely ignores the role of insulin, cortisol, leptin, ghrelin, thyroid hormones, and many other regulators of metabolism. If you eat in a way that keeps insulin chronically elevated, you can store fat even while eating less food overall. This lie has not only failed to solve the obesity epidemic, but has fueled it. People try to starve their way to health while continuing to consume the very foods that are causing metabolic dysfunction in the first place. The result: rising rates of obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and autoimmune conditions despite decades of calorie-focused advice. The reality is, it's not about eating less of everything, it's about eating less of the wrong things and more of the right things. Only when we shift the conversation from calorie math to metabolic health can we truly address the root causes of chronic disease. Do you want me to move straight into Keynote 2 at full 600 word length now so we keep the flow consistent? You said 2 tutor 2 ChatGPT said, Keynote 2, the ignored role of insulin resistance. If there is one underlying health condition quietly driving the majority of chronic diseases today, it's insulin resistance. And yet, it's shockingly ignored in mainstream conversations about health. Insulin resistance is when the cells in your body stop responding effectively to insulin, the hormone that allows glucose from your bloodstream to enter your cells for energy. When this happens, your body compensates by producing more insulin, creating a constant state of high insulin levels, known as hyperinsulinemia. This isn't just a blood sugar problem. It's a metabolic disaster that disrupts nearly every system in your body. The standard advice for preventing disease almost never mentions insulin. Instead, people are told to watch their calories or exercise more, but insulin resistance is not simply the result of eating too much or moving too little. It's primarily driven by what you eat, especially the overconsumption of refined carbohydrates and sugar, and how often you eat. Every time you consume food, especially carbs, insulin is released. In a healthy body, insulin rises and falls naturally, giving your cells time to reset. But in our modern eating pattern, constant snacking, high-carb breakfasts, sugary drinks, Processed snacks, insulin stays elevated for most of the day. Over time, your cells become less sensitive to it, forcing your pancreas to pump out even more. This matters because high insulin is at the core of so many chronic conditions. Type 2 diabetes is the obvious one, but insulin resistance is also linked to heart disease, hypertension, fatty liver disease, polycystic ovary syndrome, PCOS, Alzheimer's, often referred to as type 3 diabetes, and even some cancers. Chronic high insulin promotes inflammation, increases oxidative stress, and disrupts hormonal balance. It also tells your body to store fat and lock it away, making fat loss nearly impossible without addressing the root problem. One of the biggest dangers of insulin resistance is that it develops silently over many years. Your fasting blood sugar might still appear normal because your body is compensating with extra insulin. So, you might get a normal blood sugar reading at your annual checkup while your insulin levels are already dangerously high. By the time fasting glucose rises, insulin resistance has usually been developing for a decade or more. Unfortunately, most doctors don't routinely test fasting insulin, which means millions of people are walking around with early or advanced insulin resistance without knowing it. And here's the kicker: following the calories in or calories out model often makes insulin resistance worse. Imagine someone cutting calories but continuing to eat a diet full of processed grains, pasta, bread, and sugar. They might lose a few pounds initially because of the caloric deficit, but their insulin remains elevated, their cells remain resistant, and their metabolic health continues to deteriorate. On the flip side, someone could eat more total calories but choose nutrient-dense, low-carb whole foods, allowing their insulin to drop and their cells to regain sensitivity. This is why two diets with the same calorie count can have drastically different effects on your health. Another overlooked factor is meal frequency. The idea that you need to eat 6 small meals a day to keep your metabolism up is one of the worst pieces of advice ever given. Every eating occasion triggers an insulin response. If you're constantly eating, you're constantly spiking insulin, giving your body no time to return to baseline. Over months and years, this constant exposure erodes insulin sensitivity. Or simply eating fewer meals, even without changing calorie intake, can lower insulin levels and help restore metabolic function. Insulin resistance is reversible in many cases, but it requires flipping the focus from calorie restriction to insulin control. This means prioritizing foods that keep insulin low, like high-quality protein, healthy fats, and fibrous vegetables, while minimizing refined carbs and sugars. It means embracing periods without eating, intermittent fasting, or time-restricted eating to give insulin levels a chance to normalize. And it means recognizing that the problem isn't just too much food, it's the wrong kind of food eaten too often. When you understand the role of insulin resistance, chronic disease stops being a mystery. Weight gain, fatigue, brain fog, high blood pressure, and even mood disorders can often be traced back to this one metabolic dysfunction. Fix insulin resistance, and you remove the foundation that supports so many chronic diseases. Ignore it, and no amount of calorie counting, low-fat diets, or hours on the treadmill will protect you from the consequences that follow. For years, people have been taught to fear fat, count calories, and fill their plates with healthy, whole grains. But when we look at the explosion of chronic disease over the last century, obesity, diabetes, heart disease, fatty liver, Alzheimer's, one common denominator stands out: the dramatic rise in processed carbohydrates and sugar in the human diet. These aren't just extra energy sources that you can burn off with a little exercise. They are powerful biochemical disruptors that set off a chain reaction in your body, leading to metabolic breakdown. When you consume refined carbs, white bread, pasta, pastries, breakfast cereals, crackers, or straight sugar from sodas, candy, and desserts, they are rapidly broken down into glucose. This floods your bloodstream with sugar, forcing your pancreas to release insulin to bring it under control. If this happens occasionally, your body can handle it. But the modern diet has turned this into an all-day, everyday occurrence. Morning starts with cereal or a bagel, sugar spiked 1. Mid-morning snack with a granola bar, sugar spike 2. Lunch with a sandwich and chips, spike 3. Afternoon coffee with sweetener, spike 4. Or dinner with pasta, spike 5. Dessert or late night snack, spike 6. This is a constant roller coaster of glucose and insulin, and it's the perfect recipe for insulin resistance. The damage goes far beyond blood sugar control. High insulin levels from these repeated spikes push your body into fat storage mode, making it nearly impossible to burn fat for fuel. This is why so many people feel like they're always hungry, always craving carbs, and always tired. Their bodies are locked in a sugar-burning cycle instead of accessing stored fat for energy. This also explains why people can consume fewer calories and still gain fat if the majority of those calories come from processed carbs. Processed carbs and sugar also create chronic inflammation, the silent driver of most chronic disease. When blood sugar spikes, glucose molecules can attach to proteins in your body through a process called glycation. This produces harmful compounds called AGs, advanced glycation end products, which damage tissues, blood vessels, and organs. Over time, this inflammation contributes to atherosclerosis, kidney damage, nerve damage, and accelerated aging. Another major effect is on your liver. Excess sugar, especially from fructose found in soda, fruit juice, and processed snacks, is metabolized primarily in the liver. When your liver is bombarded with more fructose than it can handle, it converts the excess into fat. This fat can accumulate in the liver itself, leading to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease (NAFLD). Now, one of the most common liver conditions in the world, even among children, this same process also floods your bloodstream with triglycerides, raising your risk of heart disease. And then there's the brain, where processed carbs and sugar trigger a rapid release of dopamine, the feel-good neurotransmitter. This gives you a short-lived high followed by a crash that leaves you tired, irritable, and craving more sugar. Over time, this hijacks your brain's reward system, creating a cycle of dependency that looks eerily similar to drug addiction. This is why so many people feel out of control around sweets and refined carbs. It's not a lack of willpower, it's a biochemical trap. Despite all of this, processed carbs and sugar have been normalized as everyday foods. They're marketed as convenient, affordable, pure, and even healthy, with labels boasting low fat, whole grain, or fortified with vitamins. But fortifying sugar-laden cereal with synthetic vitamins does not undo the metabolic chaos it causes. The body needs nutrient-dense whole foods, not fortified junk, to thrive. The reality is you can't build lasting health on a foundation of refined carbs and sugar. You may not see the damage immediately, but inside your body, the slow drip of inflammation, insulin resistance, and fat accumulation is setting the stage for disease. By the time symptoms like weight gain, fatigue, or high blood pressure appear, the problem has been developing for years. The solution isn't to moderate sugar and refined carbs, it's to dramatically reduce them, replacing them with real, nutrient-rich foods that stabilize blood sugar, support metabolic health, and give your body the building blocks it needs to repair and thrive. Do you want me to continue with Keynote 4, the false promise of low-fat diets in the same 600-word deep dive style so the whole speech flows as one piece? You said 4, ChatGPT said. Keynote 4, the false promise of low-fat diets. For decades, the public has been told that fat, especially saturated fat, is the enemy. The food industry and health authorities convinced millions to swap butter for margarine, whole milk for skim, eggs for cereal, and steak for low-fat pasta dishes. The promise was simple: eat less fat, especially saturated fat, and you'll protect your heart, avoid weight gain, and live longer. But history has shown us the exact opposite. As low-fat diets became mainstream in the late 20th century, rates of obesity, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease skyrocketed. Clearly, the theory didn't hold up in the real world. The root of the problem is that the war on fat distracted everyone from the real dietary enemy, refined carbs and sugar. When fat is removed from food, something has to take its place to make it palatable. That something is almost always carbohydrates, often in the form of sugar, starches, and highly processed fillers. These low-fat products may look healthy on the label, but they flood the bloodstream with glucose, spike insulin, and promote fat storage far more aggressively than natural fats ever could. Fat, on the other hand, plays a crucial role in the body's function. It's not just an energy source, it's a structural building block for every cell membrane. Your brain is roughly 60% fat by weight, and many of your hormones, including sex hormones, are derived from cholesterol, which is carried in fat. Fat helps you absorb fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, and K, which are essential for immune function, bone health, and protection against oxidative damage. Removing fat from the diet starves your body of these vital components. One of the most damaging myths of the low-fat era is the demonization of saturated fat. While excessive consumption of poor quality processed fats can be harmful, high-quality saturated fats from natural sources like grass-fed butter, coconut oil, and pasture-raised meats are not inherently dangerous. In fact, research has shown that there is no clear link between saturated fat intake and heart disease. The real cardiovascular risk comes from a combination of high insulin levels, inflammation, and oxidative stress, all of which are fueled by refined carbs, not natural fats. Low-fat diets also disrupt satiety signals. Dietary fat slows gastric emptying and promotes the release of hormones like cholecystokinin and CCKA, which signal to your brain that you're full. When you cut out fat, you lose this satiety effect, which often leads to overeating. This is why many people on low-fat diets find themselves constantly hungry and reaching for snacks, most of which are high-carb and low-nutrient. Over time, this grazing behavior keeps insulin elevated and further worsens metabolic health. Another overlooked consequence of low-fat eating is its effect on mental health. The brain depends on essential fatty acids, particularly omega-3s, for neurotransmitter function and cell membrane fluidity. A diet lacking in healthy fats can contribute to mood disorders, brain fog, and poor cognitive performance. Ironically, while the low-fat movement was marketed as a way to protect the heart and brain, it often deprives these organs of the very nutrients they need to function optimally. The tragedy is that the low-fat trend has been so deeply ingrained in public consciousness that even today, many people still feel guilty about eating foods like eggs, cheese, or avocado. They've been conditioned to believe that a plate of pasta with low-fat sauce is healthier than a steak with vegetables and olive oil, when in reality the opposite is often true. Whole, natural fats, combined with nutrient-dense proteins and vegetables, stabilize blood sugar, reduce inflammation, and support long-term health far better than low-fat, carb-heavy meals ever could. The truth is that the low-fat movement didn't just fail to prevent chronic disease, it actively contributed to it. By shifting the population toward a high-carb, low-fat eating pattern, it accelerated insulin resistance, obesity, and metabolic disorders. If the goal is to prevent chronic disease, the focus should not be on cutting out natural fats, but on eliminating processed foods, or stabilizing insulin and consuming a balanced, nutrient-dense diet rich in high-quality proteins, fats, and vegetables. The modern food environment is designed for profit, not health. Shelves are lined with ultra-processed products that are cheap to make, engineered to taste addictive, and stripped of the very nutrients your body needs to function. These foods may fill your stomach, but they leave your cells starving. This is where the concept of nutrient density becomes critical. Nutrient-dense whole foods are the opposite of processed junk. They give you the maximum amount of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and other beneficial compounds for the fewest calories. They don't just provide energy, they provide the building blocks for repair, regeneration, and resilience. When we talk about nutrient density, we're talking about foods that are rich in bioavailable nutrients. Not just a long list on a nutrition label, but nutrients your body can actually absorb and use. For example, spinach contains iron, but it's bound to compounds that make it less absorbable compared to the iron in red meat. This doesn't mean plant foods aren't valuable. They are, but it illustrates why bioavailability matters just as much as nutrient content. Your body isn't just counting grams and milligrams. It's dealing with complex chemistry to get those nutrients into your cells. Whole foods, whether animal-based or plant-based, offer a complex nutritional package that synthetic supplements can't replicate. An egg, for example, doesn't just contain protein and fat. It contains choline for brain health, lutein and zeaxanthin for eye health, and fat-soluble vitamins that work synergistically. Wild-caught salmon doesn't just deliver protein, it offers omega-3 fatty acids in the form your body can use directly, along with astaxanthin, a powerful antioxidant. Grass-fed beef contains conjugated linoleic acid, CLA, which has anti-inflammatory properties and higher levels of certain vitamins compared to grain-fed meat. These are the kinds of foods that have nourished humans for millennia, long before chronic disease became a daily reality. Contrast this with processed foods. They're often fortified with synthetic vitamins and minerals to replace what was stripped away during manufacturing. But these isolated nutrients don't work as well outside of their natural food matrix. For instance, calcium without the cofactors found in whole foods, like vitamin 2 magnesium and vitamin D, may end up in your arteries instead of your bones. That's why simply adding back a few vitamins to a box of sugary cereal doesn't turn it into a health food. It's like painting rust. It might look better on the surface, but the damage underneath is still happening. Nutrient-dense eating also directly supports metabolic health. When your cells have the vitamins and minerals they need, they run more efficiently. Enzymatic reactions happen smoothly, energy production improves, and your body can better manage inflammation and repair damage. Without adequate nutrients, your body can't perform these processes effectively, even if you're eating plenty of calories. This is why malnutrition and obesity can exist at the same time, a phenomenon known as hidden hunger. People can be overfed and undernourished simultaneously. Beyond physical health, nutrient density plays a role in mental clarity, mood stability, and even motivation. Your brain is highly metabolically active, consuming about 20% of your body's energy at rest. It depends on steady supplies of key nutrients, B vitamins, omega-3 fats, minerals like magnesium and zinc to regulate neurotransmitters, protect neurons from oxidative damage, and maintain mental sharpness. Diets high in processed carbs and low in nutrient-dense foods are linked to higher rates of depression, anxiety, and cognitive decline. It's also worth noting that nutrient density doesn't mean you have to eat exotic or expensive foods. Eggs, sardines, liver, leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, nuts, seeds, and fermented foods are all widely available and packed with nutrients. Even simple upgrades, swapping white rice for quinoa, replacing sugary snacks with raw nuts, adding spinach to your morning eggs, can dramatically improve the nutrient profile of your diet. If you want to truly prevent chronic disease, you can't rely on low-calorie processed products, fad diets, or isolated supplements. You need to feed your body in a way that reflects how it evolved, with whole, nutrient-rich foods that give it the tools to function, repair, and thrive. This means getting back to basics, real food, minimal processing, maximum nutrition. Do you want me to continue with Keynote 6, How Lifestyle Amplifies or Reverses Chronic Disease, in the same deep dive style so the full piece is complete? You said 6, a ChatGPT said, Keynote 6, How Lifestyle Amplifies or Reverses Chronic Disease. Food is a powerful driver of health, but it's only one piece of the puzzle. Your daily habits, how you move, how you sleep, how you handle stress, and how much sunlight you get can either amplify the damage of poor nutrition or magnify the benefits of a healthy diet. Chronic diseases like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and even certain cancers don't just appear overnight. They develop over years of subtle, compounding stress on your body, and that stress comes from far more than just what's on your plate. Take movement, for example. Our ancestors didn't have to schedule workouts. Movement was built into daily survival. Today, many people spend hours hunched over screens, barely moving beyond the trip from their desk to the fridge. This sedentary lifestyle makes it harder for your body to regulate blood sugar, reduces circulation, and weakens muscles. Even if you eat a perfect diet, sitting for 10-12 hours a day will blunt many of the benefits of healthy eating. On the other hand, incorporating regular physical activity, not just intense gym sessions, but walking, stretching, resistance training, improves insulin sensitivity, boosts mitochondrial function, and helps your body manage inflammation. Sleep is another overlooked pillar of health. Chronic sleep deprivation disrupts your hormonal balance in ways that directly promote chronic disease. Just one night of poor sleep can elevate cortisol, impair insulin sensitivity, and increase cravings for sugary, high-carb foods. Over time, poor sleep contributes to obesity, high blood pressure, and metabolic syndrome. Quality sleep is when your body repairs tissues, balances neurotransmitters, and consolidates memories. If you consistently shortchange this recovery process, you're essentially asking your body to run a marathon every day without rest stops. Stress, too, plays a massive role. Chronic stress keeps your body in a state of low-grade fight or flight, pumping out cortisol and adrenaline. While these hormones are life-saving in short bursts, constant elevation breaks the system. Cortisol raises blood sugar, increases abdominal fat storage, and suppresses immune function. It's not just emotional stress either. Your body perceives poor diet, environmental toxins, overtraining, and lack of sleep as forms of stress too. That's why holistic health means managing not only what you eat, but how you live and think. Sunlight exposure ties into this in a surprising way. Most people are deficient in vitamin D, a hormone-like nutrient that influences over 1,000 genetic pathways. Low vitamin D levels are linked to higher risks of autoimmune disease, cardiovascular problems, and even depression. Regular, moderate sunlight exposure not only boosts vitamin D, but also regulates circadian rhythms, improves mood, and can help lower blood pressure through nitric oxide production in the skin. This doesn't mean burning yourself in the midday sun. It means intentional, healthy exposure tailored to your skin type and climate. Community and relationships also impact chronic disease risk. Loneliness and isolation have been shown to increase inflammation and stress hormones, weaken immune function, and even shorten lifespan. Humans are wired for connection. Regular, meaningful social interactions can lower cortisol, improve mental health, and even boost survival rates after illness. This is why some of the longest living populations in the world don't just eat well. They live in tight-knit communities where support is woven into daily life. When you combine all these factors, nutrition, movement, sleep, stress management, sunlight, and social connection, you either create a healing environment for your body or a damaging one. The same diet will produce vastly different results in two people depending on the rest of their lifestyle. You can't out-supplement chronic stress, and you can't out-exercise sleep deprivation. Every piece works together. What's remarkable is that lifestyle changes don't just slow chronic disease, they can reverse it. Studies have shown that comprehensive lifestyle interventions, including dietary change, daily movement, stress reduction, and improved sleep, can reverse plaque in arteries, restore insulin sensitivity, and dramatically improve quality of life. It's never just one thing. It's the synergy between all of them that transforms your health from fragile to resilient.